Give a big applause to Dave Limp. Hey Dave, it's nice to see you. Hey, come on, let's have a seat here. How are you, Dave?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Yeah, I see that you already have like kind of a Bavarian thing on you.
As close as I can get, I think.
Did you ever wear lederhosen?
I will Wednesday night. I'm going to Oktoberfest Wednesday night.
Oh, everybody? What tent are you going to?
I don't know yet. I should know, but I don't know. I know it has beer.
Okay, that's good. that's good. So Dave, it's great. It's actually, I think, the third time that both of us meet.
Yeah.
I was following, when I was still reporting out of Silicon Valley, I was following your work quite a lot around smart assistants, around devices, around Alexa. And obviously you had a big event this week at Amazon where you introduced new devices. And one thing we also have in common is that we both like Star Trek.
For sure.
Who likes Star Trek? Give me a hand here. Who's like Trekkie? Oh, I see many are. What I really liked about Star Trek are two things. One thing is that it's science fiction that's actually positive.
Yeah.
That's not the Terminator like killing us, walking down the street killing us. And it's also this idea that you have, computers everywhere and that you can talk to them and you have kind of this natural interaction with your computer. One of the characters I liked most was Jean-Luc Picard.
Right.
And he was also talking to his computer all the time. Do you remember what he was ordering?
Big Earl Grey fan, if I remember.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. So let's talk about this future that we are all probably walking into and that your company is like a big part of. We see this on television, this big vision around how we all interact naturally with computer interfaces, and at the same time we experience in our own living room Alexa or Siri or other smart assistants talking and saying, well, I'm sorry, I can't give you an answer. Sorry, I didn't learn this already. So talk about how far we really are in this discussion around voice and the future of voice.
Yeah, I think we're in a renaissance of computer science that, if you went back 20 years ago and thought we would have the kind of ambient computer environment that we have today with things like Alexa, I think I would have predicted that it wasn't going to be here as far along as it is now. But you are correct that we have a long way to go, and I think today the digital assistants, whether they be Google Assistant or Siri or in our case Alexa, they tend to be more transactional right now. That is, you ask them something, and then in our case, she responds, versus how we're doing this right now. It's conversational. But the state of the art of AI and where the industry is going is that conversation is not too far away. We launched something called Alexa Conversations earlier this year, and you can start seeing the science catch up to how us as humans learn to communicate. Now, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a little bit longer. But I predict in the next 5 to 10 years, these digital assistants will be very conversational.
Okay. You also employed hundreds of actually humans to listen to Amazon Conversations to help improve her abilities. What's the hardest thing you have to figure out? What's the hardest thing, to teach Alexa you need humans for?
It is constant improvement. So the state of the art of deep learning, of all these different algorithms, there are some that are trained and then there are some that are self-learning. And we continue to make progress on the self-learning algorithms. These are things like transfer learning and unsupervised learning.
Explain that to the audience.
Sure. So something like transfer learning, I'll give you an example, is when we first taught Alexa to speak US English, basically, that dialect of English. When we brought Alexa a few years ago to Germany, we didn't have to train all the ground truth of the language. She understood the syntax of language, and we used something called transfer learning to begin to teach her German. And that was self-reinforcing with the algorithms themselves. So that was an example where we didn't have to ground truth the data with humans. However, when we introduce a new language, what you find is no matter how much we train and how much data we have going into it, Somebody that's in Bavaria speaks very differently than somebody that's here or somebody that's in Berlin.
Yeah.
Just obviously, and Germany is is only one country, and then you start taking that everywhere else. So when we launch a new language by using we tag about 0.1% of all the data with humans, we find dramatic improvement, especially in the early days. We launched Hindi 2 weeks ago in India, and in 3 months, Hindi will be 30% more better.
Interesting.
Because of that human interaction. I hope someday that we don't need human interaction and we allow customers to opt out of it, but today it still seems to be a requirement for the algorithms.
What's the hardest thing to teach a smart assistant?
You know, I think the biggest thing right now is context. Human beings, all of you, you learn this from birth. We have a very, very good short and medium-term memory. Sometimes our long-term memory is not great. Computers are better because of databases with long-term memory and facts, but we understand the context of who we're talking to. I know your name. Even if it's out of context and somebody was to interrupt us, I would know the status of the conversation. I know what I was just talking about backstage with somebody else. Computers are not very good at that yet. The idea that they can preserve context across various different states, and therefore it becomes harder to do conversations. So we're using lots of different techniques to try to train the computers, in our case Alexa, to preserve context over a period of time.
Right. What's the number one thing you wish Alexa could do that she couldn't do yet?
Well, I wish you could beam me up. That would be great. Star Trek, that'd be awesome. You can ask her to beam you up, but it's a little parlor trick, but please do.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
super
you can?
fun.
Well, what happens?
It makes a sound effect like beaming you up, but it doesn't actually do it.
I would love to do that, yeah. What also helps is jet lag.
Yeah,
you don't have to go through this, yeah. So at the moment, you are, as far as I understand, you're teaching Alexa to learn emotions and to act emotions. Why do you think this is important, and how do you do that? How can I, think about it?
We're doing two different things. One is we're using neural networks, basically deep learning models that are neural networks, to implement a brand new voice for Alexa. We call that deep neural TTS, or text to speech. And that gives us the ability, as opposed to sort of concatenating little sound bites together, which is how text-to-speech worked for many, many years prior. It allows us to give Alexa's voice a sense of emotion. So when she's excited and your football team wins and she knows it's your home team, she can be excited when she produces the score after you ask her. She can read the news like a newscaster would read the news, which is very different intonation than how we might do this. So that's
like the Fox versus the CNN as well?
Yeah, that's very different. But that kind of those kinds of things. So we can embody an emotion into her is one thing.
Okay.
And then secondarily, as we get more conversational with Alexa and people start talking to her in more normal ways, again like we're talking here, there are times that people get very frustrated with Alexa. And so we don't detect the frustration around your environment. We don't do that. But what we do detect with the new thing we launched last week is when you're frustrated with Alexa. So if you ask for the wrong song title, if you ask for a song title, she misunderstands you, then
I say, "Whoa, come on."
Yeah, or you might use an expletive.
Really? I would never do that.
Never do that. No way. Yeah, no, I certainly wouldn't either. But the fact of the matter is, then we can detect frustration, and then Alexa can come back and try to correct herself, just as if I misunderstood you here, I might try to correct myself.
And why is it important for you to do that? Is there like a lot of frustration with Alexa then? Or?
Not a lot, but some. There's not a lot of frustration between us, but there might be some someday. And the key is hopefully not. Yeah, but the key is for sure that we want to over time get, as I said, the hard challenge that we need to do over the next 5 to 10 years is get these voice assistants to be much more conversational. And to do that, you have to mimic all the great things that are about human beings. And we won't be perfect. It's going to take us a long time. Another area is human beings are wrought with opinion. if you've ever been to a dinner party where there were no opinions, it was a very boring dinner party.
You know, in America, this sometimes happens,
Yeah,
right?
no,
People don't.
much less here, I would agree.
Right, exactly.
And so we infuse Alexa with opinions. She will tell
Okay.
you her favorite beer.
Okay.
And not
Does
be
she also tell me something about Trump versus Obama?
she will tell you something. It may not be what you want to hear, but she will tell you something.
So is she a Trump fan then? No.
I'm not gonna opine on her politics. Yes.
That's an interesting one. So does it mean that when I'm sad that Alexa buys me chocolate on Amazon?
Yeah, we don't do that yet. Seems like a good feature though.
Okay. Interesting. So you think a lot about ambient computing. Obviously, it's this idea to have computers all around, and you also talk about how your kids are using it
Yeah.
and how it becomes natural with us to interact with the computer. At the same time, you work for Amazon, for a company that has to turn in revenue and profit for stakeholders. It's actually turning in a lot of revenue lately, and also giving profits to stakeholders at the moment. But where's the revenue in Alexa? How does Alexa, raise revenue for Amazon?
Yeah, I think the thing about Amazon in general is we tend to be very patient as a company. And we don't, when we invent and come up with new things, whether it be Alexa or the ability to deliver faster or Amazon Prime or Prime Instant Video, all of these things, we're not looking to invent them such that they're going to be a success or failure next week or the next month. We take a very long horizon, often 10 years. In fact, paraphrasing Jeff, one of the things he says that I always love is all of Amazon's overnight successes take about a decade. And so the idea is, first and foremost, and Alexa is no different, is to build a product that customers love. And that also doesn't happen overnight. When we launched Alexa 5 years ago, she knew how to do 13 things. She now knows how to do hundreds of thousands of things. But now we're starting to see customers really love the product and service. Once you get to that point, then you can start thinking about ways to monetize it, and either monetize it ourselves as Amazon, but also monetize it as developers. And now at this point, the Alexa flywheel is going very, very fast. And the developers alone, sans what Amazon makes from Alexa, there are now billions of US dollars flowing through this Alexa flywheel now. So whether it's a smart home developer or a skill developer or other types of people, they're now making money because of Alexa. And you love to see that.
But at the same time, you're a company that writes press releases before you actually launch a product. So you must have an idea of where you want to go, what quarter you want to turn in revenue, what kind of profit are you thinking about. And Jeff Bezos is obviously also somebody who's investing in something that actually returns revenue. So what's the perspective here? What's your deadline, maybe?
Well, the good news is we don't work backwards from a deadline. We do work backwards from the customer. And the nice thing about customers, all of you think, is that you are divinely discontent. You always want to get more. But if we do the right thing by customers, that good things usually come. Sometimes we'll have failures, but usually good things come. And we're already seeing signs of that with Alexa. We didn't have a date to which all of a sudden we knew these things would work, but I'll give you a couple examples. Our music is working on Alexa. Alexa's brought music back to the home again. It was in the home many decades ago, but it was kind of lost and it got trapped in our phones, but now it's coming back to your house again. And now music is a subscription service. And by the way, it could be Amazon's, and lots of people do subscribe to Amazon's music service, but it could also be
Apple.
Spotify or Apple. We support them all, but all of those are now producing revenue for those stakeholders. Another area where that Alexa is beginning to monetize very well for partners and Amazon is in the smart home. To make your smart home work, you have to buy smart bulbs and smart plugs and those kinds of things, and those are all places. And you can certainly buy them at Media Mart, but you can also buy them on Amazon. And when somebody buys those, Amazon gets a little bit of profit.
When are you giving away your products for free?
That is not
Because
the
I have
business
to explain
model.
that. I have to explain that
Yeah.
because, like, the business model that's really fueling revenue for Amazon is like the e-commerce platform. And as far as I understand, Alexa is also like a connection, a sales channel to the customer. And you dramatically lowered prices over the last couple of quarters. You're introducing new products. You introduced new earbuds, for example, who are like much cheaper than everything that's in the market right now. So talk about how you calculate this, how you think about pricing for the products versus returning revenue, like from e-commerce.
Yeah, our business model in my part of Amazon, which is the devices and services, has been the same since our first product, which was Kindle, which is we try to sell the products basically at break even. So if it costs $50 to build the product and deliver it, then we'll try to sell it to consumers for $50. And the reason we think that's a very good business model and aligned with customers is that so many types of consumer electronics customers buy, and they try them for a few minutes, and then they put them in a drawer and they never use them again.
Right.
And we don't think we should profit if somebody buys an Alexa and puts it in a drawer and never uses it. We think we should profit when customers are using our products. So basically, when we sell our products, we don't make any money. We don't lose a lot of money either. We just break even on the product itself.
Yeah.
That's our goal. And then what happens is if customers happen to use it, they happen to shop more, or they happen to subscribe
But
to...
they do shop more, I guess, right?
Yeah, often they do, for sure. Or they happen to subscribe to Amazon Music, or they like audiobooks and subscribe to Audible. And if they're using it over time, or on a Kindle if they're buying books, then we make a little bit of money each time they do something like that.
Right.
And over time, we think that's very aligned with customers.
Talking about the customer, there was like some irritation lately, and there was a big discussion around privacy because you had like humans listening to things that people talked with Alexa. Was this something that surprised you when this happened, and how did you deal with it, and what did you actually change around privacy? How did it change the product?
Yeah, I think privacy is, especially in an ambient computing environment, right, where whether it's talking to your phone and it has a wake word on it, or it's an echo where you can wake it up, you have to think about privacy from the very, very beginning. And so when that happened, and this is a few months ago, the first thing that we did was make sure were we being clear enough to customers that this was going on. I think the industry was, including ourselves, by the way, was not clear enough.
Okay.
This has been going on for a long time, and in academia, people knew about it. In the industry, we knew about it, but it was very clear that...
So you made a mistake.
Yeah, for sure, that we weren't clear enough in communicating it. And then what we did is, as soon as we understood customers were concerned about this, rightly so, by the way, is we were the first company to offer customers the ability to opt out from that human being annotation. We launched that feature effectively the same day that the headlines hit. Maybe it was a couple days after. And that, we typically would rather not be that reactive. In this case, like I said, we could have done better as a company. But often we're very proactive when it comes to privacy. We in some ways, Alexa and Echo formed this category of home, assistance. And from the very beginning, we've electrically disconnected microphones when you hit the mute button. We didn't have to do that, but we thought that was important. We've allowed customers to delete all their data from day one, which we think is important for customers. So now, it's an evolving segment. There's a lot going on. We're going to continue to learn.
And it's always hard to learn terms, to read terms and conditions for a customer.
Right.
It's like often very complicated, and nobody is really doing it, I would say. So could you have made it easier for the customer to understand what was going on?
I think we have. This year we launched something called the Alexa Privacy Hub, which is kind of a one-stop shop for all your settings. You don't have to go find them in random menus deep into the settings. And we also try to use plain English, or here plain German, to tell customers exactly what we mean by these kinds of things, so that they don't have to go down to subparagraph 4 in a set of terms of service to understand what we're doing.
What I found interesting about the debate, back in the day I was still in California, was that obviously we as humans have much bigger issues with other humans listening to what we talk to a machine about than machines. on the one hand. On the other hand, machines can go through much more data, so they can learn much more about us than any single human could do. But obviously, it's kind of a human condition that we don't like other humans to listen to our stuff, where else we don't seem to have the same issues with machines. I think it's kind of weird, or maybe it's like something we have to figure out as a society still.
Yeah, but I think as an
it?
industry we can do well there too. Like if we annotate data, we make sure that there's no customer-facing information for that human to see. Now, obviously, if you said something in your utterance that was personal, you could potentially hear that.
Right.
But we don't put any customer address or names or shopping history or anything like that in front of the annotators. And like I said, we'll continue to evolve this. Privacy is, it's sacrosanct.
It's a pain in the ass.
No, not really. It's not a pain in the ass. It's very important. Yeah, it's super important.
So talking about something other than privacy, you've worked with Jeff Bezos. You are actually working with Jeff Bezos, and I saw pictures of you guys at the last event. You also worked with Steve Jobs. So talk about what you did before, what you did at Apple.
I was 9 years at Apple. I kind of straddled Steve. I knew him afterwards, after I left, but I started my career at Apple. I'd always wanted to work there. I grew up kind of programming in Apple II, played a lot of lemonade stand for anybody that has my age at this point. But I'd always wanted to work there. I dreamed about working there. So when I left university, I was classically trained as a computer science. I went to Apple and spent the first 9 years of my life there, and I think it still rubs off on me today on what's doing it. And then I went and kind of did what a lot of people in this audience are doing. I was an entrepreneur for many years, and then Jeff called, and when it was, I have my dream
What did he
job.
say? What did he say?
Well, he first said, "Come work," and I told him no, which was not my best move.
Okay.
And then he was very kind enough to ask me to come work for him again, and that time I was wised up a little bit and said yes. But I often tell people I have the world's best job. I have the world's biggest Lego set and a boss who keeps buying me more Legos, so it's awesome. What more would you want to do? It's so fun.
Many people try to figure out the specifics of the way Amazon does innovation. And I've been to Seattle many times, saw what was happening there. It's like two pizza teams. Probably you can talk about this a little bit, and how you actually, move so fast in so many different directions. You, like as Amazon does, like video, music, Alexa, devices, is now moving into healthcare, obviously insurance. So talk about, you talked about the flywheel of Alexa. Talk about how you create in Amazon, how you create this innovation system, and the system of innovation in the company.
And I do think that this is, the big, it's not really a secret. We talk about it a lot, but I think it is the reason that Amazon continues, although we are a large company, there's no denying that. I think we can innovate, not at startup speed like a lot of you, but we can innovate much faster than others. The first thing is what I said earlier, and you mentioned the documents that we write. We work backwards from the customer. We write down what we want to invent. Doesn't mean we don't change it as it goes along, but generally, before we write one line of code, throw one hardware schematic, we write down what we want to invent. And the idea is that you should be able to take that document and give it, as you said, to a two-pizza team. That is a group of engineers that you can feed in an evening with two pizzas. Right. Generally, it depends how hungry people are, but call
very
it
healthy though.
Let's call it 6 to. I never said healthy here. I just said 6 to 12 engineers we can feed, and they can then go off and invent these products and services as we move forward. The other thing that we try to do is when something is important, and any big named project inside of Amazon is important, we wake up and we put a single-threaded leader on it. Somebody that wakes up and only cares about that feature or that product until it's delivered and customers are happy with it. It serves a very important purpose, because if something is your part-time job, you're never going to give it the peace of mind and the level of scrutiny that you need to do. But if it's your full-time job and you are that single-threaded leader, you're going to wake up and give it your all to deliver that product on behalf of customers.
It can be like a very small piece. then?
Sure. What you try to do is you try to split the products up into their atomic kind of pieces. Right. And those get down at the very leaf nodes of the organization. Those are these little two-pizza teams. But the other thing that Amazon does, I think, pretty well is when we're inventing and doing software, especially, all of those various leaf nodes are abstracting their software, their code, with APIs. So as an example, right. You could imagine at Amazon, we do a lot of, we have a purchase pipeline, for credit cards, and we have fraud detection. Right. You have to have those if you're an e-commerce company. Even though my part of Amazon sells a lot of things, I don't have to build the purchase pipeline and fraud detection. Teams way before I got to Amazon have built those, are constantly improving them, and they abstract them with APIs, so my teams just have to call them. Similarly, we build Alexa the same way. We build it as a service, so that if AWS wants to build a voice system to give voice access to lots of developers, like right. maybe in this audience, you can just call into Alexa as an API. And when you do that at scale, you start seeing how the puzzle pieces can then start interoperating with each other.
Right. Many companies, legacy companies, traditional companies in e-commerce or in other industries, and also many startups ask themselves how they can compete with Amazon. They see Amazon as like a big incumbent that's be very hard to fight with and very, very hard to compete with. How do you look at this discussion?
Well, I look at this room and I walked around the hall. I'm super impressed with what's going on here. And I'll give you one example that's near and dear to my heart, because about 18 months ago, we acquired a company called Ring, right. who has a missionary founder, like many of you in this audience.
It's a camera.
It's a doorbell camera. Right. It started that, and they now have more products. And the founder's name is Jamie Siminoff, and he worked 8 years to build this company. And I'll give you a perfect example. We launched a camera that competed with Ring.
Didn't go anywhere.
Ours failed.
Okay.
We were too late, not scrappy enough, not as good a product as they did. So I met Jamie. I told him that. We hit it off, and we ended up paying $1 billion for Ring. And so there are so many ideas in the world, and don't get you any ideas here, all right? Okay. Maybe Wednesday at Oktoberfest. All right. Bring the checkbook.
Oh, great.
Yeah. But there are you just have to wander around the halls here. There are so many good ideas. Even though we're inventing and doing a lot at Amazon, I've never been more opportunistic that entrepreneurs can build great things. There's so many tools. When I was an entrepreneur, call it 15 years ago, boy, when we raised our first $2 or $3 million, $1 million of it, $1 million of the $3 million went to infrastructure. We had to buy infrastructure. We had to stack and rack our own servers. You just have to put down a credit card and buy it variably with AWS or other cloud services. So it is a great time to be an inventor. It's a great time to be an entrepreneur, and I am very confident that people will, and they are and will continue to compete and beat Amazon in many different places.
How can you beat Amazon today?
Well, I gave you one example with Ring, and I think there's lots. I think that we're only doing so much, and if you focus on your customer and you continue to work really hard and have an idea that you're passionate in, there's room for lots of winners out there. And whether it's Amazon or Google or Microsoft or others, there's plenty of places to innovate on behalf of customers. I'm absolutely convinced of that.
How do you look at the European startup ecosystem? You mentioned that you want to write big checks, so that's good news for us here, obviously. So is there any interesting innovation that you would look forward to, or that you specifically find interesting here in Europe, or any specifics that you like about the European startup ecosystem?
Well, I tend to think that right now, I started saying this, that the sort of pace of innovation with computer science has never been faster. And what I'm finding is that the university systems around the world, by the way, are now producing entrepreneurs, computer scientists that are being able to use these modern tools and modern algorithms, whether they be machine learning or deep learning. And that means that there are pockets where university centers are that are producing just great work. And we're hiring lots of those people, but I also think as an entrepreneur, it means you have the ability to get access to this talent as well. And we're doing it in the Ukraine, we're doing it in Poland, we're doing it here in Germany, we do it in Cambridge in the UK. So all throughout Europe, we're seeing these pockets of talent sort of bubble up. And if we're seeing them, I guarantee that people in this room can also recruit them because you can be scrappy and you can be focused on customers. So I think there's a lot of optimism there as well.
Okay, cool. Thanks for being here today with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.